So in this video, I'm going to show you the step-by-step process on how I set up, lit, and shot this image in my small home studio. So welcome once again to my small home studio. And for you guys who are not familiar with the channel, this shooting area is a very small shooting area. This is only 2 meters wide and 3.5 meters deep. And in this particular video, as you can see, nothing is set up yet. I will go through the entire process of setting up the background and the lights and basically show you how I lit and shot that image in extreme detail. And in this video, I'm actually introducing a brand new modifier that's perfect for a small home studio. And what is it? It is the new Photix Capsule Deep 40. 40 cm, only about 18 inches. Very, very, very small. Perfect for a space this big. Now, what is so special about this particular modifier? Well, look at it. It's so small. But there is one special feature. That's why it's called a capsule. This one's an ordinary softbox where you could put in the diffuser inside and the diffuser outside. It's going to create somewhat decent light. However, of course, to create soft light, you need the light source a lot bigger than your subject. So even if I'm shooting a very tight portrait, as you can see here, it's not so much bigger than my face, and it won't give me really soft light even if I have it this close. But it has one special feature, which is this. This is an umbrella. It's a basic umbrella. But you can convert this modifier into a capsule, like so. So it becomes like a lantern modifier, which is basically what we're going to be using today for this shoot. So what this does is that instead of having one directional small light towards your subject, you're actually diffusing it again and spreads out the light, giving the look of a shoot-through umbrella. However, you are still controlling it by having a bit of directionality. One of my favorite modifiers right now, actually, but we'll get back into this. We'll get back to this later. So let's set up the backdrop. You see that I have a backdrop here, but let's not even think about that. We are going to limit ourselves to this area here. So I want my backdrop in this area also. So the first thing that we need to do is have our backdrop holders. And this is one little technique that I do. Wait, let's move this first. To make sure that both of my light stands are even, I have the legs like so. So the moment those two edges touch, that means that the base is more or less even. So I will have this both here at the very end of my 2 meter shooting area. Now I have this one. This is a backdrop holder. This one basically extends to about 10 feet, but we don't need it to be 10 feet now. We just need it approximately 5 feet. So now I'll lock it into place. And these are just clips to hold this backdrop right here. But before I install this backdrop, what I like doing is I try lifting the backdrop as high as I can already. That's comfortable for me to actually mount the backdrop. So what I do is that I make the light stand as high as possible for per section, then bring it back an inch. This one too, as high as possible, bring it back an inch. Now we have this more or less at a comfortable height for me to mount this backdrop. So all I will do is just clip it on like so. Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect yet, because then you're going to make the backdrop fall. What I'm using now is a hand-painted backdrop from Kate Backdrop. It's actually about 5 feet by 7 feet, so more or less 2 meters, you can see here. The 2 meters is being used up because this is a 5 foot long backdrop. So let's just move it, make it sure that it's correct and tight. There you go. And from there, you lift up the backdrop one by one. The stand, sorry. You lift it up slowly. It would help if you have somebody to help you with when it comes to doing this, but when you're doing it alone, just make sure you do small increments of bringing your backdrop up. Okay. We're almost there. And I think maybe one more lift and we should be okay. There you go. So you've got a good 5-foot by 7-foot hand-painted backdrop here that will serve as our backdrop. Now, you see here, I actually have my Photix Cerberus. I've actually used this quite a number of times in the video, but it's the first time I'm actually going to explain it. This is what you call a tilting bracket. It's actually separate from the Cerberus mount. So this tilting bracket can actually just hold an umbrella if you want to. If you don't need this, it will just mount directly to your light stand like so. Now this Photix Cerberus will mount on this one here on top. So this tilting bracket will allow you to tilt your flash so you can control the direction of your light. Now the beautiful thing about this Photix Cerberus is that you've got a mount here where you could put your Speedlight, and in front is a female Bowens mount. Now what's a Bowens mount? It's basically the holder of your flash modifier. Now for you to mount your modifier, what I would suggest is having it tilted upwards so that you can get your modifier like so and just drop it in. And once that's done, just lock it in place and you've got your modifier like so. And to mount the flash, all you have to do is, my flash is right here. To mount the flash, all you have to do is lift this up and slide it in. Right? Another modifier that we're going to be using today is here, another light stand. On this light stand, I have the Justin clamp mounted. This is from Manfrotto. And you notice my light stands. You could actually change where the spigot is. It could be from the top or to the side. The reason why I like it on the side is so that I can mount my Justin clamp like this. And if you guys saw the previous video, I used this to hold up my backdrop. This time, I'm going to use it for my reflector, which we will be needing later. This is basically just a 20 by 30 cm foam board. It's a white foam board that I lock in place like that, and I can adjust the height the way I want it depending on how we're going to be using it. So with all those things out of the way, let's talk about the camera that I will be using. So before I get into detail about my camera system and all my settings, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to our friends from Gizmo Plus and Photix for always supporting the channel. Gizmo Plus is one of the most reliable sources for photo, video, and tech needs in the Philippines. They carry some of my favorite brands such as Photix, Benro, Xeon, Hollyland, and many more. If you are from the Philippines and are looking for the best deals for gear, check out the link I put in the description of this video to see what they have to offer and use my special code Jiggie15 upon checkout for a good 15% discount. So with that out of the way, the camera that I'm using today is my Sony a7R Mark IV, and the lens is a 24mm f2.8 GM version 2. I'm using the 24-70 because I might zoom in and out, and as you can see, I am still within my 2 meters and 3.5 meter area. Even my light should be inside that area so that it's easy for you guys to replicate this in your small home studio if this is the only space that you have. Now, what are my settings? Well, right now I'm aperture priority. I'm going to shift to manual mode. But for me to show you guys properly, I think it's time for me to call in my wife, Coco, who will be the subject for today, or my subject for today. Come on in, babe. Hi, babe. You look beautiful as usual. So a little bit of patience because I'm going to try to explain everything again. All right, so this is my trigger. This is a Sony WRC1M. But you could use any trigger at your disposal. It could be those simple triggers such as pops the flash, or you can have those triggers that can control the power of the flash, which is what this one does. The flash that I use, in case I wasn't able to mention it earlier, is my Sony f60RM. But again, you could use any flash at your disposal. What this one does is that the moment I click my shutter here, it's going to pop my flash. That's what a wireless trigger does. And I will have it here on top of my camera on the hot shoe. Now this light, as I said earlier, if we have it directly towards Coco, it's gonna, well, you know what? Let's take a test shot of this one. But before we do that, we have to put in the settings of my camera. So what are the settings of my camera? Right now, I am on aperture priority, but I'll put it on manual mode. I'll put it on ISO 100 so that I can have the cleanest possible image. You could see, I'll turn off my flash first so that you could see the actual exposure. Because these smart triggers like this WRC1M, the moment that I put it on my flash and I'll turn it my camera and I turn it on, it automatically disables live view so I can see what I am shooting. So I'll turn it off first so that I can see the exposure of my existing ambient light. My shutter speed is set at 1/250 because that is the flash sync speed of my camera. And right now you could still see a bit of, well, you could still see a bit of light. So I'm going to stop down now and put it to f5.6 so that more or less you don't see anything anymore. Then I will turn on my flash so that I can see my composition. Bring this up a bit because I think I want to do maybe this type of portrait. Okay, now I'll take one test shot. Oh, by the way, my white balance is set at 5600 Kelvin because this is rated at 5600 Kelvin. And let me see. This is how we would normally have your light, more or less 45 degrees towards your subject. And let's see how this one will turn out. That's okay. So it's too weak. We'll just make the flash stronger. And yes, I am controlling my flash using the in-menu system of my Sony camera, one of the advantages of using a full Sony system with a Sony flash and a Sony trigger. So I put it at 1/2 power. That's too strong now. Let's bring it back to 1/4 power. There, that's actually okay. That's actually decent. Well, nothing really great, nothing spectacular. But if you need images like this, it's actually fine. It's okay. However, there's something about this particular modifier that I like. So with my tilting bracket, I will just make this tilt all the way down. So now it looks like a light bulb, right? So it's like a light bulb moment. So what we'll do is we'll bring up the light as high as possible. Right now, you know what? Let's do something again, babe. What do you think? Let's bring out the trusty measuring tape. Okay. Why not, right? So let's bring out the trusty measuring tape so that you guys can actually repeat this at home. This light is about, till the end, about 61 inches, 5 feet, 1 inch away. Then Coco is, I'm gonna measure your height. Coco right now is about 5'5". So we have this light lower than Coco's face. Then Coco is about, maybe you could take a step forward. There we go. Coco is about 2 feet away from the camera. And then we will put, the backdrop, yeah, sorry. And the light will be about, at the edge, 16 inches away from her face. Let me see first if it is gonna be in the shot. No, it won't be. That's actually pretty cool. Let me lift the camera up this way and put it at about 70. How do you want your composition to be? See, I want to ask her also, how do you want it? Until here?
Yeah, until where the coat ends, maybe.
Okay. So most of the pictures that we post are on Instagram, right? And Instagram is 4:5, and this is 4:6. So we have to give a bit of allowance. So I move the light, and the light is now about 20 inches away from her face. And I will zoom out there. So I'm leaving a lot of space on top and below so that I can crop at 4:5. And I am now at 50 mm exact. Now, how far is my camera? My camera is 5 feet away from my subject, and it is about 50 inches high, which is perfect since I'm shooting a half-body portrait. Camera angle should be more or less chest level of your subject, okay? Okay, measuring tape, you're gone. All right. So what this does now is that it spreads the light. Instead of having one directional light towards her, it's just gonna spread light all over. And let's take one shot. There we go. Now, it's still not as nice as how I want it to be because it feels very dark, it feels very dead. So what I can do now is basically move the light more in front and adjust my exposure to maybe 1/2 power. Now that's better. And yet, we're still getting that high contrast on one side. This is where this modifier comes in. So this modifier, again, it's just a standard foam board. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the light coming from here and bouncing it off here to open up the shadows. And we can lift it up this way. And let's see how this one will turn out. There we go. All of a sudden, it just made everything alive. It's about reducing contrast. So the light in itself is creating relatively soft light because of the way it's positioned. However, we're creating a lot of contrast because of the distance of the light to your subject. Now, having a modifier such as this one allows you to bounce light back towards your subject, which now opens up the shadows and reduces the contrast. And let's do a few more. Beautiful, babe. I love it. How about looking towards me now? Beautiful. Very simple lighting setup that you can do in your small home studio. Thank you very much, babe. You looked fantastic. So let me run it through you guys. Let me run by the entire setup again. Oh, by the way, babe, do you have any questions? No questions. All right. But you look fantastic. Again, we had a 20 by 30 foam board here to use as a reflector. We had a Justin clamp to hold it on a light stand. We had a Photix capsule 40 cm, a very, very small lighting modifier. Oh, by the way, this one is about, I think, 7 feet tall. Now, the problem is if you don't have ceiling this high, this is the ceiling of the studio is about 8 feet, you could always make your subject sit down, bring this down lower. Then I have the Sony f60RM there. This capsule, basically just another umbrella, spreads the light all over the place, captured by this one to open up the shadows. Very, very simple one light setup that you guys can do in your small home studio. So let me know if you guys are successful or if you have any questions with this lighting setup. And I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and while you're at it, click that notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload a new video like this. Now, if you want to see more of my images, you could always find me on Instagram. It's at Jiggie Alejandrino. Okay, till the next video.